What's good, family? So mash the like button, subscribe, and lick off the bell. So your man's George Foreman has sent out some somewhat fatherly advice to Anthony Joshua. He said the following: I saw the AJ versus Usyk fight. AJ seemed afraid. He looked like he lost his identity. It looked as if he was thinking during the fight, should I be cautious and go 12 rounds, or should I attack with my power? Usyk is a typical southpaw. He thinks, if you won't hit me, I'll be awkward and hit you. In my opinion, something's wrong with AJ. This isn't the AJ he's not the AJ who's used to kind of taking his licks and coming back. Who are you, AJ? Now, as you've probably heard, I've had to adapt some of what George Foreman said there because I think the English is out. But I've read between the lines, I believe, and that's more or less what it's saying. And you know what? Let's take it from the top. And I've got to admit that out of everyone, even myself included, a lot of the British media, in fact, a lot of the media, full stop. I mean, my dad made a good point. He said that, where was the real press at? Now, I know that Russell Crowe, I've got his name now, but yeah, Russell Crowe, that guy, the one with long hair, he started trying to ask good questions, or half-sharp questions. He got shut down immediately. Rob McCracken shut him down immediately. Oh, there ain't no drawing board. We're not going to the drawing board. What drawing board? Got really defensive, and he wasn't even that. Listen, if I'd have been there, trust me, yeah, booties would have been sore. Never mind your eye, your booty would have been sore by the time I finish with you, no doubt. Your eye would have been your last of your problems. And you best believe I'll be asking for a refund on my William Hills. Yeah? No doubt. But anyway, like I was saying, the media in general is moist. There's no real dons there. They're all just rubber offers. I mean, you had Radio Raheem saying, you know, AJ, don't worry about that. At least you fight decent people. I mean, rather than asking decent questions, you're rubbing off the fact he's fighting a decent fight. None of AJ's fans care that he's fighting a decent fight. I'd rather him not, to be honest. If it means he's going to fight a decent fight but not turn up, I'd rather him not bother, truth be known. I'd rather him fight bums and look good, honestly. It's only good fighting good fights if you're going to turn up and get stuck in. Otherwise, what is this? What's the point? What is the point? But anyway, back to this. The wider point I'm making is George Foreman is the only dude really half stick it on AJ, even a little bit. George Foreman said here, AJ seemed afraid. Who has really said that in the last few years? Publicly speaking. Name me one. Name me one media dude. Johnny Nelson, any of them ones. Name me one person who said, you know what, AJ's looked a bit afraid. And we've all thought it, to be honest with you. Anyone who's got any noddle has been thinking it. I maybe haven't said it as much because I've been scared of... Honestly, I've been scared of coming across as a hater, truth be known. But everyone who's honest, who knows boxing, it's the facts. The facts are that Ruiz 2 performance was scary. Yeah? That Pulev performance was scary. Casual fans, people who don't know boxing, have convinced themselves. AJ super fangirls have convinced themselves, oh no, the Pulev fight wasn't scary, it's IQYB. No word of a lie. I did a video analysis, yeah, of AJ vs Takam, showing you how aggressive AJ was. And go in that comment section. The video is called the video is called When Anthony Joshua Fought Like a Prince of War. Type that into YouTube, you'll see it come up. Look at the comments. The biggest comment has about 100 likes, and it says, oh, YB, people have to evolve, AJ's evolved, AJ's got the highest IQ in boxing at the moment, yeah, he's evolving, and everyone was stroking that dude off who said that. Everyone was saying, YB just wants to see Rock'em Sock'em, you've got to evolve. Oh, evolve? How the evolving going for you, man, then, now? How that evolving going? I've even got dudes in my comment section now saying things like, YB, he did pretty well against a top pound-for-pound fighter. No, we ain't doing that. That's what we're not going to do. Let's accept this because, no. We be consistent. Before the fight, not one man was talking about top pound-pound. Everyone was saying, cruiserweight get crushed. Every single man. So let's remain consistent here. We went from cruiserweight get crushed to big 6'6" Africanulese looking ass getting schooled and best part of stopped. Usyk's already said that, you know what, I didn't want to knock AJ out. I was told not to knock him out. And truth be known, that's what it looked like as well. Facts. Usyk was riding the legs off AJ. It's a fact. In that last round. AJ weren't fighting back. He weren't 50-50. He weren't a squabble. He weren't a fight. It was... I couldn't watch. I had to turn away. Couldn't believe what I was seeing. AJ was hanging on to his last legs. Clinging onto the ropes. It reminded me a bit like Dillian White versus Parker. In them last rounds. Difference is, Dillian White had put enough work in the bank earlier in the fight. So all he needs to do is hang on. AJ had lost 9 rounds, so hanging on weren't an option. But yeah, George Foreman saying this, and AJ made some comments after the fight that, it's good, I need all the haters, I need everyone to give me advice, because that's when it matters. Well, if you ain't going to take my advice, or if you're not going to talk about anything I'm saying, which I know for a fact, out of everyone who's talking, the person who's making the most sense is the YB. It's a fact. Because no one else... And people... It's all well and good everyone jumping on the bandwagon now. I've been saying this for years. Ever since the Ruiz fight, I said, listen, we need to nip it in the bud. We need to nip this anxiety in the bud right now. Oh, no, YB. IQ, YB. No. YB, IQ, YB. No, he danced around YB. No, that's what you man was saying. Now look at you. Looking silly looking. Bunch of silly looking asses. 100%. You can't go from Mike Tyson looking ass to run around looking ass. That's a problem. Even if not technically it's a problem psychologically. How can you go from murking people to want to run around? That's a big red flag to anyone who knows anything. Now AJ's not Mike Tyson, but it's more or less, imagine seeing Mike Tyson suddenly going backwards. That's a red flag. But for some reason we went to accept it and talk about IQ. And I actually said before this fight, I said, you know what, it might be a good thing for AJ to get to lose against Usyk, because maybe this will be the thing that gets him to go. And in fact, I may have even said, I think it might have been on Patreon, but either way, I may have even said that part of me feels like AJ's going to lose this fight, and this is what's going to make the change. So we'll find out anyway. Within the next 4 weeks, we're going to find out. If he does go to Shane, then I'm going to be gassed. And I'm going to be back on the bandwagon. But anyway, let's not get caught up in that for now. For now, let's keep riding this thing. George Foreman called a spade. AJ seemed afraid. Facts. That's been the case. That's done been the case. Pulev fight. Afraid. Ruiz 1. Afraid. Ruiz 2. Afraid. This comes from, in my opinion, AJ's team. His team are scary. He don't have no bulls in his team. He don't have no tops in his team. He don't have no doms in his team. He has a bunch of bottoms who are scared to lose their job, who don't want to rock the boat, who just want to keep going, who are mediocre dons. That's what he's got. His team are full of them. I've done been saying that. Bunch of clingers honors. No one got any. No one give him no discipline. Me, yeah. If I was in AJ's camp here and he's walking out kissing babies, I'd tell him to fix up. We ain't kissing no babies on the way out. This is business time. It's not kissing babies time. Don't get me wrong. After we've won, after we've got the work in, if you want to go and talk to the crowd, so be it. But for now, it's work time. Now, I've sat there, I've been quiet for a while. People have said things like, IB, everyone's different. And nah, this game is this game. It's a ruthless game. You must be ruthless in there. Otherwise, and I've been saying this. If you let moistness soak into you, before you know it, the whole lot's moist, which is what's happened. Moistness spreads. Fear spreads. Before you know it, it starts in a little piece. And before you know it, it's everywhere. The whole AJ thing is moist now. The whole lot of it's moist. That's a fact. There wasn't one part of the whole fight that wasn't moist. Oops. At least in the Ruiz 1 fight, he gave us a round of trying to get stuck in and got clipped. So yeah, that's a fair question. AJ seemed afraid, that's a fact. Where that comes from, Mike Tyson, there's video of Mike Tyson being 16 years old, yeah, and literally crying because of fear. He was scared of going in there. But that shows you how great his training team were. Mike Tyson went from crying to the most ferocious individual ever seen in the history of the sport. That's what great trainers can do. Great trainers, and they are able to harness that fear and pump it into ferociousness. Do you know what bad trainers do? Do you know what AJ's team do, which is full of bad trainers? They let that fear fester. They let that fear flourish. They let that fear determine their strategy. Don't forget that. The Ruiz 2, the whole strategy was based on fear. Same as Pulev. The whole strategy based on don't engage. Whatever you do, don't engage. Even this fight. AJ's losing every round more or less. Rob McCrappen saying, "No, AJ, light on your feet. Stay behind the jab." That's all I heard. Stay behind the jab, and brilliant. Brilliant AJ. All we saw was his head getting pinged back. And we're talking about brilliant AJ. Slow jab. Slow right hand. No inside working. At one point there was a clincher, and I saw the referee step off, almost begging for some inside work. And they ended up having to break up because no one wanted to work. Now, I don't blame Usyk for not wanting to work, but to be honest, half the time, or more than half of the time, AJ was the one engaging the clinch. So, I can't even say that, oh well, Usyk kept trying to avoid fighting on the inside. We didn't see neither men try and do it, really. Which for me, knowing AJ's career, knowing his strengths, how can you have a 12-round fight? At least in the Parker fight, the inside fighting didn't work. Not because AJ wasn't trying to. The referee kept splitting it up. But this fight, it wasn't the referee's fault. So how can your advantage is be inside fighting, but you go the whole fight and with not a lick of inside? That's a big red flag. How can no one in your team have said, AJ, we've gone 10 rounds and there's been no inside fighting. Make it your fight. Get on it. We've seen all the great trainers go crazy when their fighters aren't doing the right thing. We've seen their trainers go crazy. We've seen Floyd Mayweather tell Tank Davis, Tank, you're down bad. You need a KO. And full credit to Tank. Tank, despite being young and whatever else, he got straight on it and got the KO. I respect that. AJ's team, the blind leading the blind. No urgency. No nothing. Nice and slow behind the jab. Not, get on this dude, ride his legs off. You're getting whooped you're fighting his fight. But we knew this, because anyone who watched my channel knew, during this camp, what did I tell you? I told you, number one, Usyk's coming to knock AJ out. Coming to stick it right on him early in the fight. That's the first thing I told you. Second thing I told you was, I've got evidence, AJ, in camp, he running around. He dancing around against cruiserweights. In camp. So it makes me laugh. Rob McCrappen, he's very manipulative. He's very crafty. In the post-fight stuff, he started saying, yeah, well, it's obvious we had to walk Usyk down. It's obvious that we need to be more aggressive against Usyk. Don't be coming with that, Rob. That stuff sounds good, but number one, where was that in the whole camp? Number two, where was that advice in the fight? Oops. And I'm going to be surprised. Check this out, people. I'm hearing, the corner audio. Don't expect that to be released, people. I'm hearing Rob McCrappen, he can be doing the most to make sure that audio don't come out. Because it's no good saying after the fight, yeah, it's obvious we need to be aggressive. It's obvious we need to impose ourselves. It's obvious we need to have an authoritative jab. But you weren't saying, not even once did Rob McCrappen say anything about, why isn't your jab pumping? Why aren't you being authoritative with the jab? Why aren't you looking to work on the inside? No, I've never heard Rob say anything like that. Not in this fight, not in no fight. And you can watch videos of mine on Rob McCrappen, from a year ago, where I can tell you what he's going to say in every fight. And that's it, AJ. Nice and slow behind the jab. And what was he saying? That's it, AJ. Lovely. Nice and slow behind the jab. Oh, and this time he added light feet, light on your toes, light on your feet. Light on your feet ain't got nothing to do with walking someone down and getting stuck in and putting uppercuts and hooks together. So what you're talking about, you knew what had to happen. No, you didn't know what had to happen. You've heard all the criticisms after the fight, and you've realised how stupid you look and sound. And you're trying to save your brand. George Foreman says that AJ lost his identity. Well, that's obvious as well. But it's a shame that it's taken George Foreman, and I'm not even sure, this is probably going to fall on deaf ears, truth be known. I'm not sure AJ will even see this, but it's true. AJ has lost his identity. Dillian Whyte said it back in the Pulev fight. He looks confused. 1 minute he's going buck wild. Yeah? 1 minute he's going buck wild. It's going crazy, no finesse. Next minute, he's not doing nothing for 5 rounds. Little pity-patty jabs. Confused. This last fight against Usyk, a whole bunch of nothing was going on. This performance wasn't even confused. It was just a bunch of nothing. He essentially just stood there, and it makes sense when AJ's been saying, "Oh, we don't have a strategy. We don't have a plan. The plan's to win." Yeah, that's what this fight looked like. This fight looked like they had no plan. They had no holes in Usyk's game they were planning to exploit. They had no targets. They had no bullet points. They had no. For me, every fight I'd go into, yeah, I'd want 3 or I'd want 5 elements, five key points to win in this fight. Me and my coach had worked on in this camp. And therefore, if in the fight I'm not doing 1 of the 5 or 4 of the 5, my coach can tell me, YB, AJ, remember we've been working on A, B, C, D. You're not doing B. Let's work on B how we've tried it. Now, if Usyk's countering B, that's when good trainers come in and say, AJ, Usyk's countering point B. Remember we worked on this to counteract his counteractions. You know, little things like that. A thorough game plan. Thorough bullet points. Where you've looked at your opponent, and then instead, guess what we heard in the post-fight? Oh, we don't look at the opponent, we focus on ourselves. Yeah, we are. We're not really interested in what he's doing. Well, how'd that work out for you? Got you whooped, is how that worked out. I bet you don't think about your opponent. And this comes back to, in my opinion, the naive belief that you can just be athletic enough. And that's what even myself doing it, I got fooled into that. Well, AJ he can just be a super athlete, and that's going to get him out of jail. He don't need to he don't need to think about no one else. And to an extent, I still believe that. I believe if AJ goes in there like a killing machine, he can bend everyone to his will, like Alvarez does. Go in there and march forward with a jab pumping, get on the inside, put 3 big shots together. If you do that, everyone will bend to your will. I do still believe that. Because I haven't seen it fail. If it fails, fair enough. I'll admit that even that's wrong. But going in there with this wishy-washy game plan, of no game plan, of just go through the emotions and just be athletic enough, I'm just going to respond to whatever's going on. It wasn't it. Clearly it wasn't. There's a reason the great trainers and the great fighters have a strategy. Look at Fury versus Wilder 2. That's a strategy. A strategy, by the way, that I talked about as well, truth be known. I was the only one saying that. Everyone else was talking about, Fury can't get caught and Fury needs to run around. And if anything, what Fury's done, in the last 2 fights with Wilder shows you a lot of what I've been talking about. Boxing can actually be a lot harder when you run around. It's more taxing on the legs. It's more risky. You're just essentially waiting to get popped, and you're not doing no popping yourself. When you're coming forward, in my opinion, even though it feels the opposite, it's actually a lot safer. Most times people get clipped is when they're backing up. When you're toe to toe, well, of course you can get clipped, but when you're toe to toe with someone, it's easier to smother the work. It's obvious what's going to happen here. Hooks and uppercuts, which in my opinion are easier to defend as well than straight shots. But anyway, George Foreman says, "Who are you, AJ? Who do you want to be?" And I've been saying that. I think I may have even said it before this Usyk fight. Who do you want to be known as? Who do you want to be? This whole boxing business, we want to prove we can box. That's what you want to be. That's fair enough, to be honest. But no, you ain't going to outbox Usyk. You ain't going to outbox Fury. So you need to understand and appreciate that. Everyone's given certain gifts. Fury at 6'9". Usyk at whatever he's got. You have to work to your gifts. If you don't, you make life harder for yourself. And you end up losing unnecessarily. But the way AJ and his team are at the moment, they seem hell-bent on trying to prove something. And trying to prove that they can be the best boxer ever. And unfortunately, they've had many years now. And they haven't made that much gains, in my opinion. Not enough to justify it. To go down this route. Nowhere near enough. Every single shot, for example, we know for a fact southpaws are going to be getting a straight left hand off. We know that's coming, especially Usyk. Usyk doesn't really uppercut and hook. Well, he does. He has like a bit of a flicky left hook, but in the main, you know the shots that are coming. Left straight hand. So how did you not have a defense for that? How did you not have your hand constantly covering that angle? What were you doing in camp not to know that? I'm not saying you can, of course, you're always going to get countered. Some shots will always get through, but not to that extent. Loads of people have gone in fights with Usyk, much smaller than Usyk, where it's harder to defend, and not had as much damage as AJ had. Usyk couldn't miss, to be honest. Because of AJ's leaky defense. So it's all well and good saying, we want to prove we can box. Well, boxers don't have leaky defense. I think what you mean to say, which links back to George Foreman's earlier point of he seems afraid. I think what you mean to say is you want to disguise boxing with not wanting to get stuck in, wanting to avoid getting hit, which isn't the same as boxing. Floyd Mayweather wasn't scared to get hit. He was a boxer, if that makes sense. There's a difference between the two. Boxing isn't the same as I'm going to do what I can not to get hit, which is how you fight at the moment. How AJ fights at the moment is I'm going to do whatever I can not to get in a bad situation. Which in doing so, in my analogy the other day, when racing drivers have a fear of crashing, they must stop. No good. Because it ends up even more dangerous. Same as boxing, in my opinion. When you're scared to get hit, and you do anything not to get hit, it's time to retire. It's time to hang it up. And unfortunately, that's the way AJ's been fighting the last few fights, in the last few years. Even against Pulev, who's slow and no good, he was still super anxious. Took him 5 rounds. And even then, it was a random shot that caught Pulev. So I'm just hoping that one of these guys, maybe George Foreman, reaches out to him. I think even after the Ruiz fight, I said that it wouldn't be bad to have one of these guys in his camp. Get rid of the whole team, in my opinion. You see, Chris Eubank Jr., he's teamed up with Roy Jones. I'm not even sure about... I'm not someone who's going to shield this whole narrative of, you need a great fighter to be a great trainer. But at this point in time, I'll take anything. I'll take Lennox, I'll take Foreman, I'll take Roy Jones, I'll take any of these dudes in the camp over his current team. 100%. Because I know at least they're gonna know what needs to happen. And at least then we can be confident it's gonna be on AJ to implement it. At the moment, we ain't got no confidence in AJ's team. And based on the last fight, we ain't got no confidence in him. Because having a bad team it's not the whole lot. We could still have confidence in AJ, yeah, if he'd have gone for it during this fight, if that makes sense. We could say, yeah, the strategy was wrong. Yeah, the training's crap. But look, people, he had a crap strategy, crap training, but he went in there and he really did give it his all. He really did show up and show out. We can't say that. I'm not saying he gave it no effort, but it was just like a training performance.